Hello, everyone. Today I'm looking at Dead Space. Man, oh man. I love this game, dude. Dead Space is definitely one of my favorite games of this generation, of Gen 7. And of course, it recently got a remake in 23. And it was still, really, really good. So obviously people really, really like this game. Now, what makes Dead Space so iconic? Well, first of all, the basic gameplay mechanics is that it basically feels like Resident Evil 4. You have this over-the-shoulder horror, sort of sci-fi opera kind of vibe going for you. And so the whole premise is you play as Isaac Clarke, an engineer who ends up trapped on a futuristic space mining vessel called the USG Ishimura. And so what eventually occurs is that you are assigned there kind of part of the rescue crew because they send out a distress beacon, but you are an engineer. You are not a soldier, you're not a fighter, and you are not part of this craziness that is about to unfold, while there are soldiers on board that are. Alongside yourself, you also have Kendra, who is kind of your, ops person. And I think Harrington is his name, who is kind of the soldier guy. And so you come across the Ishimura, and you basically realize it has been infected with demonic alien monsters. And again, what I can't stress enough about Dead Space is the atmosphere in this game is unlike anything else I've ever seen. I mean, you can call this a Resident Evil 4 clone, but it is one of the most intense games I have ever played. When you go on the ship and it slowly, builds from the very, first part of the game, the music transports you into this extremely tense and strange environment where you are absolutely horrified about what's to happen next. The necromorphs, as they're called, are in the vents. They're kind of crawling around everywhere, and the only defense you have against them is actually mining equipment initially. And so you use that, and the main kind of mechanic of Dead Space that they really hype up is that you have to cut off the enemy's limbs. So the necromorphs take human beings and transform them or other things, and the way it works is essentially they mutate the body so that it becomes spikes grow out of it, and long the bones become elongated. And so what happens is you can basically shoot off the legs and arms of these creatures, essentially to disable them. And so, unlike other zombie games where you might have to shoot them in the head, and you're looking for all the extremities, so the arms and the legs, and usually I go for the legs. But yeah, there's something extremely iconic about this game that just transcends all other mediums. Another huge component, I think, to this game are the sound effects and sound design in this game. The heavy doors moving, the sound of regenerating health, the sound of the weapons, the sound of the necromorphs themselves. The sound design in this game is absolutely phenomenal. Simply because, the USG Ishimura has its own set of technology and standards and styles, and you really feel that through the sound design as well. And so it feels something very iconic, that you're not just on another random, whatever spaceship, but there's something very specific about this ship in general. As the story goes on, you realize that what is causing this entire thing is something that they were mining for and found on a surface planet below, which is called the Marker. And as later games will, attest to and become the main kind of focus point, the Marker is this object of ultimate conversion and power, and essentially is this thing that transforms people into one flesh, into one body. And so it kind of takes a religious kind of meaning for those who become possessed by it. And there's this own Marker language, and so this is kind of the perfect mixture of space and horror and sci-fi. And again, I've never felt so on the edge of my seat in any game ever. This game, I like how it maintains the sense that you also have this huge arsenal, but it is still extremely scary because you just don't know where the aliens or the necromorphs are going to come from next and how dense the atmosphere is. It's just a really amazing feeling. And the fact that everything in the environment is always short-circuiting or fluctuating on the power grid, and it's always kind of on the fritz, and you're always never sure when the power is going to go out and something's going to attack you in these small, short corridors. Another gameplay mechanic is stasis and the other kind of moves that kinesis that Isaac has. So since Isaac is technically an engineer, his engineering suit allows him to do certain things in the environment. And what's also interesting about is the aesthetic of his suit is also very distinct. It's just very cool how it's designed, how it's these horizontal lines over his face mask. It just makes it very, very iconic. That makes you think, oh, that's Dead Space. And when you actually start the game, you only have one of these. And until you get his iconic three-lined sort of face helmet suit, that's, 3 upgrades. And eventually you keep upgrading the suit until you reach the military suit by the end of the game. But yeah, a lot of Isaac's gear and equipment is based on repairing things. So what you tend to do is use stasis and other things to, relink power couples, insert certain items, reestablish connection arrays and stuff like that. And that kind of aspect to it is the fact that makes you kind of very vulnerable, and also the guy who can fix everything and get around the station while all the other NPCs are kind of trapped in their own situations. There are also certain segments where you will be involved with zero-G, and I love that they keep it accurate, wherein, there'll be huge explosions happening in zero-G, but because you are in space, you cannot actually hear them. You just have a slight vibration, which is, again, very, very cool. You will also come across, there's one mini game where you have to shoot these asteroids with this laser, and honestly, I never really like that part. I thought it was kind of clunky and janky. There's one thing I can complain about, but again, everything in this game is so polished and so well done. Another main component that Isaac has to each weapon is that it also has an alternative fire mode. So what you can also do is, while you have, the normal one, the plasma cutter out, what you're also able to do is shift if you want to shoot horizontally or vertically. And so there's always an alt fire for every weapon. My favorite one is probably the assault rifle, because when you essentially do the alt fire mode and hold it down, it goes into this really crazy 360 degrees firing mode, and it just, if you have a bunch of ammo, you can just go crazy, and if you're surrounded, it's the best thing for that. Ammo is pretty scarce in this game. Similar to Resident Evil, up to a certain point where you finally, near the end of the game, have tons of ammo, and it's fine. Isaac can press the R button without aiming to swing his arms around to knock back the enemies. He also presses RB to do his very iconic stomp and to turn, all the bloody guts into more bloody guts, and as well as destroy a bunch of crates on the ground that you soon realize are breakable and usually hold goodies in them like ammo and other things. Even though Isaac can use his stasis and kinesis to repair things, he can also use it in combat. So stasis is used for slowing down certain rotating items or malfunctioning doors, but it also slows down enemies, but of course it has a limited use and percentage. Kinesis is pretty much unlimited, and you can use it to obviously move certain pieces of the environment around, but also move around certain aspects or certain ammo pieces or other things in the environment that you need to grab. Dead Space is also obviously a very gory game. It's able to essentially create situations where Isaac gets completely devastated and destroyed by the necromorphs. In fact, every single necromorph has a special animation for how it kills Isaac, and has its own, again, unique specific death animation. One of them ranged from, cutting off his arms and his head. Another one, putting its skull in Isaac's body and possessing him. All of them extremely graphic. And I guess on the graphic context, I would also say that the gore system in this game is really, really dynamic and interesting. And what I always was very critical of was the fact that in this era of games in Gen 7, a lot of the graphics were kind of met with this sense of this constant bloom. And so I felt for horror games, it was very difficult to make a proper horror game like Resident Evil 4 or other games like that, because the engine that was built in already had an inherently kind of dark tone to it, which I think was really interesting. And so when Gen 7 came out, everything was absolutely bloomed. Even Resident Evil 5, which I expected to be, of that type, definitely wasn't. It was still very bright, very colorful, and just didn't have the right atmosphere. Dead Space nails that atmosphere. It's able to have that dark atmosphere, that certain type of gore that's very, very distinct, very unsettling, and again, makes the game all that more iconic. Along with Isaac's armor, the story, the environments, the music, the sound design, the weapons, everything in this game feels new and fresh and different and just so well done and so cool. I just can't get enough of it. It is such a good game. Another really cool aspect that this game does is the inventory system and interface and the HUD, because everything is in game. It's only if you press start, it'll actually pause the game. But if you want to bring up your inventory, the map, use certain objectives or anything else, audio logs, the game never pauses. They're all part of Isaac's suit. And Isaac's suit is also all of your health counters. So again, instead of having a heads-up display, Isaac does have a heads-up display, but again, it's shown in front of him rather than on the person's visor, because it's a third-person game. So this is a really cool thing that people praise Dead Space for, is that Isaac's health is symbolized by the spinal cord fluid thing on the back of his display. That shows you how much health you have and how close you are to dying. There's also a display for how much kinetic energy and stasis power you have and how much you have to change it. Also, audio logs and video logs appear in front of Isaac as if he's saying it in AR. And so again, it's not shown to the player. So it's this really cool thing where the camera is literally following Isaac, but Isaac himself has his own perspective. Another thing I really appreciate about this game more than the sequels is that Isaac does not talk throughout most of this game. And I really appreciate that. However, because it allows the player to give their own interpretation of what they're feeling and what they're seeing. And another thing that's really also very cool and compelling is that despite Isaac not talking, there are plenty of text logs of summary recaps that you don't have to read but are optional, but it does have Isaac's take on them. And so Isaac does have his opinions on, the events unfolding. They just aren't voiced, which honestly I kind of prefer. They totally changed that in the remake, though. Isaac has a brand new voice actor, and this is something I really, really do not enjoy and like, is that they changed Isaac's look. You don't see Isaac's face until the very end of the game where he takes off his helmet, so it's like, okay, fine, whatever. But I really don't like this trend of turning voice actors into celebrities more than the character of himself of the game. And in the original Dead Space, Isaac, he looks like he looks like sort of Mediterranean or something, or he has dark hair. And in the remake, he's some kind of ginger, which looks like the voice actor, and also the other characters have been changed to look like the voice actors. And it's this really weird thing. I don't know how to feel about it. I do not like it. It looks just generally very weird. It's just not nice. I prefer, if you're gonna make a remake it to how the game looks. And I know there has to be some artistic or technical liberties, but that kind of thing just feels very wrong, because now Isaac is not Isaac is his voice actor, and that's just like if you put the game director as the main character in the game. That's just very weird as a change. Another thing you'll see is that the necromorphs, essentially they have this organic growth throughout the station. So there are certain parts where you'll just have this flesh or biotic matter just growing out of the walls, and there are, again, a lot of enemies that are composed of odd, strange mutations or flesh, and again, act as these strange creatures that are like half human, half flesh, but not a lot of machines actually. And a lot of the times the machinery in the station will stop working because it is blocked by this organic mass that you have to clear away using your tools at hand. Some other weapons in this game are also the flamethrower, which I love, a pulse beam rifle thing that uses sort of force and force grenades. A very funny kind of in-game joke on this game is the pen gun, which I think you can find it in the beginning area of the game once you return back there. For the most part, the game is actually pretty linear and you can't really re-explore other areas, but sometimes it does let you go back to certain areas and let you explore. And so the pen gun is basically this giant kind of like the number one kind of foam hand you see at sports matches, and it's kind of this in-game joke, and one of the achievements that you have to get to 100% the game. Another cool aspect to this game is also how you upgrade your guns and weapons and stuff. There are these workbenches, and you have to find these nodes in order to upgrade the weapons and suit armor and things like that as well. And so the nodes are obviously kind of side objectives. They're kind of in far off, not easy to get areas. Sometimes you have to fight a bunch of enemies to get to them. And they are these essentially these upgrade points that allow you to map the upgrades of your weapon through kind of like a upgrade tree, and so each node is a new point on that tree. So you can do things like upgrade the firepower of your basic plasma cutter, the rate of fire, the reload rate, inventory capacity, all that basic, very technical stuff that's not not very nuanced or whatever. And again, this game feels, a lot like Resident Evil 4, and definitely is, as I would say, almost now as famous as Resident Evil 4. I think Resident Evil 4 might beat this out just a little bit in terms of how it's designed, but this is like a very close competitor. They're not almost on the same level. Again, there's different enemies that fly around that tend to climb up walls and stuff. The average necromorph is very humanoid, but I'd say the scariest enemy in this game is the Charger, or whatever it is, which is this massive brute, I think it's called actually, this massive beast with this giant claw. There are some enemies that have explosive parts to them that glow orange, and so kind of how to defeat them. And so when you shoot them, they tend to blow up, and you have to be clear of their blast radius when that happens. What's also funny and interesting about Dead Space is also the way it handles other kind of environmental hazards. I mean, obviously you're being killed by an army of these incredibly dangerous, demon things on board. But the other part of the thing that are killing you are the malfunctioning parts of the spaceship, which is just part of the kind of sort of industrial corporate theme that Dead Space is going for. And so you'll have malfunctioning doors and things without maintenance that kind of essentially kill you. What's also interesting about the game is you can also only save at certain aspects with no autosaves, so that really does make you feel a little bit like Dark Souls, like you're diving into this, area, and you have no idea what's on the other side, and you don't know if you're going to be able to survive or save or whatever, and you have to be able to basically make it out alive. Again, the main thing in this game is you don't want to get surrounded. There are definitely times, though, where you have to go down some dark corridors and be, very trepidatious and whatnot and cautious. But yeah, I love the gore, the violence in this game, because it's not just that it's violent, it's that it's very distinct in how it handles its violence. And it feels very appropriate for a game of this sort. I totally forgot one aspect of the story is that Isaac Clarke is also here looking for his girlfriend who is on board. And oh god, I forgot what they did in the remake is that they again made her look like her voice actor, so they aged her up like 30 years or something. It was really frustrating and stupid, honestly. And so for most of the game, you end up finding audio logs or recordings of her, and you're really looking forward to, like, you know, meeting her again. And of course, you find out what happened to the space station, and you're very distraught. And yeah, you're kind of wondering, you know, where she is and if she even is still alive. Throughout the course of the game, Kendra and Hammond, oh yeah, his name is Hammond, they end up, you end up meeting them at certain junctions, you know, throughout the parts of the game, and they end up giving you basically advice and directions and whatnot. And they develop as characters, and, you know, you try to keep them alive. Eventually what happens, though, is you make it all the way down off the planet to the planet's surface, where you finally confront this thing called the Marker, and the ultimate kind of monster or biomass that is guarding it. And you have this epic climactic final battle, which is so extremely satisfying. And again, you know, Dead Space reminds me of like a movie, Event Horizon, but doing the combination of sci-fi and horror has never been so well done as Dead Space. I mean, it is, to me at least, in my view, the climax of sci-fi and horror combined. And, you know, that's both from the you know, organic materials and the kind of, you know, zombie aspect, but also from, you know, the ship itself and the malfeasance and negligence of, you know, a left alone and neglected space station. And again, you know, throughout the entire mode of the game, I've never felt so on edge. You know, just the fact that knowing that anything at any time can come at you from any angle. And I've never felt so stressed out playing a video game. And I think, again, the music really adds to that effect, because what it does is you have these really harsh violins and things going off, and they're just really, really overall super, super intense. And the game just feels so balanced. Like, it's no wonder it got a remake. I mean, I'm a fan of games that weren't good initially getting remakes, but it makes no guess that this game got a remake, because it was just so well done and so well loved and so well liked by so many people. Again, I love how you get the audio recordings and you find out about the different people on the ship and how things fell apart. It definitely reminds me, another thing, but of also System Shock, how you have this highly advanced civilization and this ship, and how everything just slowly falls apart due to madness and the Marker and the necromorphs, and how they uncover this ancient thing that should have stayed hidden, and now everything is basically, you know, become dystopian. Anyway, I've been talking for long enough about this game. I think everyone deserves to play it. The remake also has some questionable things in it, like, you know, unisex bathrooms, and they changed some of the advertisements and just petty little things. Also, the characters, again, they just look like the voice actors. Like, why did you have to do that? I mean, I'd recommend you play the original. It's pretty much more or less the same as the remake. But, you know, if you do play the remake, it's not a huge tragedy. You're still getting the core experience, essentially. But yeah, I really like this game. It's a modern classic, absolutely. And I guess really enjoy it, but I'm sad to say I don't feel the same way about the sequels, but I'll get into that when I get to review those. Anyway, guys, that's pretty much it. All I have to say about this wonderful game, and I'll see you all later. Bye.